Hello friends, it's Kayla. If you want to hear the description of 40 books that I think I kind of want to read one day, then you've come to the right place. I don't know how many videos I've done at this point like this. It's probably around 10, but essentially if I see anything intriguing, it can be a couple words, a little blurb for a book, a cover, a title, anything from any author I've ever heard of, I like put it in this little folder of let's look into this one day, read the description with a couple thousand people, and decide together if we want to read the book and add it to our Goodreads. So I have like 40 things, so I felt like it was time to make a video. These all come out at the end of 2022 or in 2023, or they don't even have a date associated and they just had a title that made me intrigued. Let's get right to it. Rebecca ROANHORSE, author of this and this, she has it looks like a standalone fantasy book coming out at the end of the year. Also, maybe a novella, like 200 pages, called Tread of Angels. I really like the cover. I just saw that it's historical, so let's see. The year is 1883 and the mining town of Gosha is booming as prospectors from near and far come to mine the powerful new element divinity from the high mountains of Colorado with the help of the pariahs of society known as the Fallen. The Fallen are the descendants of demon kind living amongst the virtues and winners in an ancient war. It says it's a new world of dark fantasy. I feel like this synopsis might not do it for me if it was going to be like a sprawling series, but the fact that it's a novella very much intrigues me, so I will pick that up. Let me know if you will too. Next up, I saw that CJ Tudor, who I've read some thrillers from, is coming out with a short story collection, which I love. It's called A Sliver of Darkness. The cover, I'm obsessed. It says it features 10 bone-chilling and mind-bending tales. So what I've read from this author is like thriller, horror, light kind of stuff, but this seems to be pretty like dark, speculative horror. It says time slips, doomsday scenarios, killer butterflies. They're riveting and explosive original stories. 256 pages out at the end of the year. I'm reading it. I also saw that Stephen Graham Jones, My Heart is a Chainsaw, I talked about the sequel, that it's coming out, but I just saw that it got a new cover, and I don't know if it's like a different cover like because of like where it's being published, or if it just has a new cover period, and I do prefer this one, but I'd love to know what you think. Also, the series is called the Lake Witch Trilogy. I don't know that I knew it was a trilogy until just this second. If you watched my most recent cover video where I like design and predict covers and then I react to the covers, you've already seen the next three, but I haven't featured them in this scenario. So number one is Finlay, Donovan Jumps the Gun, which is the third book in the Finlay Donovan series. I'm going to tell you right now as just a little teaser for my book club for anybody who happens to click on this. Like, thank you so much for being here. And you get the exclusive information that this will be a book club selection. I'm picking something in a series as a book club selection, which I've never done before. And I don't know how that's going to go over. But it is happening, and there's going to be a lot of us on the live show, and I think it's going to be a good time. But I don't love the cover. Like, I'm not obsessed with it, but I wasn't obsessed with the second one either. Just the first one is my favorite. But I do really like the colors, and I like the title. And it's following Finlay Donovan, a single mother and an author, and the hijinks that she gets into when she is hired to be a hit woman. The next one, where did it go? Is the next Wayward Children book. It's number 8, Lost in the Moment and Found. I adore this cover so much. It's not what I thought it would look like at all, but I love it. And in this one, we're following Antoinette, who we briefly saw in a past book, and all we know about her is she comes from... Do we know anything about where she comes from? I just know that she's known for losing and finding things, and that like it's all about how the world is so balanced. So she'll lose one thing, but then she'll find someone, and she'll lose something, but she'll get it. So in the description, it says she lost her father, and she finds a door to leave the shop, but stepping through the doors exacts a price. It's gonna be a good time. Do we really know, like, do you need to know what any of the books are about in the series in order to pick them up? I don't think so. I don't think people are really picking and choosing which ones they're reading from the series. Like, you're either reading the whole thing or you're not, right? And then the third book that I covered is called Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. It's Alex Stern book 2, sequel to Ninth House. I don't actually know that I'll be picking this one up. I'll probably wait to see other people and their reviews because Ninth House really disappointed me. But this one, and the world building and the relationship building, it could go in incredible places. So I'll see what other people think first. But Ninth House is about this girl named Alex. She goes to Yale. She joins like a secret society that has to do with protecting the other societies or something like that. Sinister occult activities. Next on my list, ooh, How to Sell a Haunted House got a cover. I don't like it. I don't hate it by any means, and I don't think that Grady Hendrix covers really do a lot for me. Like, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is pretty, but like when you look at all of the covers together, like, are they that exciting? I don't know. But also, have I ever read the synopsis of this? I don't think so. I think it was just a little blurb, and then the cover came out and the date got changed to like 2023, which we were all sad about. So let's find out what it's for real about. When their parents die at the tail end of the coronavirus pandemic, did not know that, Louise and Mark are devastated, but nothing can prepare them for how bad things are going to get. The two siblings are almost totally estranged and couldn't be more different. Now, however, they have the choice to get along. The virus has passed, and both of them are facing bank accounts ravaged by the economic meltdown. Their one asset, their childhood home. They need to get on the market as soon as possible because they need the money, blah, 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 blah. As disturbing events stack up in the house, Louise and Mark have to learn that sometimes the only way to break away from the past, sometimes the only way to sell a haunted house, is to burn it all down. That actually doesn't sound that interesting, but I'm sure it will be. Next up, I talked about this book before, Loot by Jen Marie Thorne. She has some other things. I feel like this is her first horror adult novel, but it didn't have a cover, and now it does. And I think it's fine. This is the one that's like an idyllic island, and every 7th summer, 7 people die. They have good health, good fortune, like everything comes easily to them, and it's because there's like a sacrifice, and they know that they need to sacrifice these 7 people in order to keep living their perfect little lives. It's a day of nightmares, of grief, of reckoning, the day of community, of survival and strength, of love, pure and untamed. I think it'll be a good time. Another one that I talked about before because it's one of my most anticipated reads of the end of the year, it comes out in September, is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. And we got a cover. I think it's so pretty. I was excited to read the sequel to The Year of the Witching, but I don't think we're getting a sequel to The Year of the Witching, at least anytime soon. But I'm super excited to read this instead. The quick blurb is a young woman is drawn into the upper echelons of a society where blood is power. I just think it's going to be a really good time. It's definitely going to be a contender for the November selection of the Literally Dead Book Club. It's going to be put to a vote, and last year we ended up reading like a gothic horror and it didn't go great, but this could be our moment for redemption. So it's not up to me, it's up to all of you, but that vote will come later in the year. Next up, I don't like this cover, but I understand how people could, so let me know how you feel about it. It's called A Shot in the Dark by Victoria Lee. This is the author of many things. The only thing I've read is A Lesson in Vengeance, which I didn't love, but I really want to read something else from them. So I think I just automatically added this, but it's just like a romance. So good luck to me. It says, an emotionally powerful romance novel about 2 people finding love after struggling with addiction, ultimately discovering what it means to be completely and unapologetically themselves. We have a main character, Ellie, who goes to an infamous queer club for a celebratory night of dancing. She meets a gorgeous man who's swept off her feet, and then she shows up for class the next day and realizes the man she spent an intimate and steamy night with is her teacher. I definitely don't gravitate towards student-teacher relationships, regardless of like the commentary associated with it, or like it being problematic or not, or if the power structure is even discussed or not. Like, I'm just not really interested in it. So I don't know if that one is officially on my TBR or not. You know which one is though? Jessie Q. Sutanto, author of Dial A for Aunties, which I read recently and I'm so obsessed with, has another mystery. Is it going to be a series? Probably. Starting in 2023. It's called Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, and it's about an older woman, which I've talked about before, isn't like something that I gravitate towards, but I feel like I'll probably pick it up because I expect it to be ridiculous. A lonely shopkeeper takes it upon herself to solve a murder in the most peculiar way. She's a lonely old lady who lives above her forgotten tea shop in San Francisco's Chinatown. Then one morning she goes downstairs and finds a dead man in the middle of her tea shop. Vera is sure she'd do a better job than the police possibly could. What she does not expect is to form friendships with her customers and start to care for each and every one of them. As a protective mother hen, will she end up having to give up one of her newfound chicks to the police? Ooh, I'll definitely be reading that. Next up, I have something from Hannah Allcalf, who I enjoyed The Weight of Our Sky and Queen of the Tiles from. This one definitely looks like a middle grade, but there's no information on Goodreads. It's called Hamra and the Jungle of Memories. I feel like I saw something on Instagram. She says, what if Little Red Riding Hood was a little girl in a red hijab? And what if the beast that awaits her in the jungle was a were-tiger? Oh, and it comes out like on my birthday next year. Okay. Not a lot of info, but sounds great. Next up is called The Spite House by Johnny Compton. This one just got a cover reveal and I like it a lot. It says, Eric Ross is on the run from a mysterious past with his 2 daughters in tow. Having left his wife, his house, his whole life behind in Maryland, he's desperate for money. It's not easy to find safe work when you can't provide references. You can't stay in one place too long, and you're paranoid that your past is creeping back up on you. When he finds a strange ad for a Mason house in Texas, Eric thinks they may have caught a lucky break. The property, notorious for being one of the most haunted places in Texas, needs a caretaker. Basically, it's on him to prove that the house isn't haunted. But if it is haunted, then maybe it'll help him understand the uncanny power that clings to his family. It says it's a black Southern Gothic, and it might be a contender for a future book club pick because I definitely want some more horror. Not more horror than thriller next year, but more horror than we've had in the past. And then this book I just heard about comes out in August, and it's by one of my favorite authors, Stephen Graham Jones again, but it's only available on audio. And I feel like that's something I haven't seen very often, and I wonder if you think it's going to be a trend moving forward, because I definitely have seen some short stories especially do this, but not very often, and I wonder, like, is it becoming more prevalent? It's called The Babysitter Lives. It's narrated by Isabelle Star LeBlanc. I haven't read the synopsis, but like, I'm obviously going to listen to it. I love an audiobook. I love Stephen Graham Jones. What could go wrong? A mother carries her 6-year-old daughter into the tiled bathroom where the bathtub's already running, is still running, is overflowing. And for a moment the girl is calm, seeing her little brother floating face down in the water, his hair a golden halo around him. And then his mother is guiding her face first down into that water that, as it turns out, isn't just water but scalding water. And 11 years later her scream is the drawer screeching out of the counter by the sink. What? When high school senior Charlotte agrees to babysit the Wilbanks twins, she plans to put the 6-year-olds to bed early and spend a quiet night studying. But tomorrow is also Halloween, and the twins are eager to show off their costumes. Charlotte's last babysitting gig almost ended in tragedy when her young charge sleepwalked unnoticed into the middle of the street. But this house is filled with mysterious noises and secrets that only the twins understand, echoes of horrors that Charlotte gradually realizes took place in the house 11 years ago. Soon Charlotte has to admit that every babysitter's worst nightmares come true. They're not alone in the house. What the actual... God, I don't like it. I will be reading. I will be listening. Next up, totally different vibe. Really switching course here. This cover, look how precious. It's called The Firefly Summer, and it's by Morgan Matson. This is her debut middle grade, and it says it's about a young girl who gets to know her mom's side of her family over the course of one chaotic summer. Our main character's name is Rihanna, and her summers have always been spent with her father, but this year she gets a letter from her grandparents, who she hasn't spoken to since her mother's death, and they want her to come stay at an old summer camp in the Poconos. Doesn't that sound so wonderful? I'm very picky about the middle grade that I pick up, but I do think I'll give that one a read. Ooh, then we have Grey Warren by Maggie Stiefvater, which is the 3rd book in the Dreamer trilogy. First one being Call Down the Hawk, then Mr. Impossible. This is my favorite title and cover of the series. And it's going to wrap up the entire story of Ronan Lynch, who you saw in the entire Raven Cycle quartet, the finale of his story and all of his brothers. There's also a lot of other characters and like magic systems going on in the series as opposed to the Raven Cycle that like don't do it as much, obviously, as like the friendship did in the Raven Cycle, but I'm still intrigued enough to read it. Obviously, the other books have been like 3.5 and 3 stars respectively, so I'm just excited to wrap it all up. Next is a book or an author that I've never heard of because it's a debut, but it's called The Mimicking of Known Successes, and it's a novella, and it's from Tor. And when it's a novella from Tor, you just pick it up. The author is Malka Ann Older, and it says it presents a cozy, it's a cozy murder mystery and a sapphic romance set on Jupiter. Oh my god, fun. On a remote gas-wreathed outpost of a human colony on Jupiter, a man goes missing. The enigmatic investigator Massa follows his trail to Val de Geld, home to the colony's erudite university, and Moss's former girlfriend, a scholar of Earth's pre-collapse ecosystems. That was a lot of words. The two of them embark on a twisting path in which the future of life on Earth is at stake, and perhaps their futures together. I'm gonna read it. Fun. Next, this one actually comes out really soon. Not really soon, it's November. My point is, I've already heard people talk about it. I'm definitely late to the party. I don't know, maybe it had a cover reveal recently and that's why it popped up on my radar, things I haven't talked about with you yet list, but it's called Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger, who I haven't read from, but she has a lot of books out. People really enjoy her. It's more so like the title. This is what I want to read, a secluded cabin with 6 characters. It says 3 couples rent a luxury cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway to die for in this chilling locked room mystery. As with most thrillers, I don't really want to read the full synopsis. That's all I need to know. I'm going to pick it up. It's probably also going to be a contender for the vote at the end of the year for what we read together in November for the Literally Dead Book Club. I put like anything that could have been a pick but wasn't earlier in the year. That's usually what we're deciding between for November. I think we're on to things with no covers now, so they're literally just a title. The first one is called Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abikayamide. I read Ace of Spades from this author last year, and I added it because on Instagram she says it's pitched as Mean Girls but with murder. After being homeschooled all her life, Sade begins her 3rd year at a prestigious boarding school, and when her roommate goes missing, some suspect Sade, drawing the attention of the school's 3 it girls. But there are more secrets to the school than the students may realize. Can't wait to see the cover. Bet it's gonna be great. Next, I have, I don't know why I would add a short story collection by Josh Mallerman, but I did. I didn't like the last one. I didn't finish the last one. Or did I? I skimmed a couple stories, but I probably marked it as read. This one's called Spin a Black Yarn, and it's 5 novellas. One of them has to do with a haunted house. One of them, a dying man confesses to homicides he never committed. One's about a tourist and the ultimate trip to outer space. One's about a couple buying the latest home gadget only to find themselves trapped by the out-of-control machine. And one is about triplets where one of them is murdered. Will I pick it up? We'll see. Then I have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher, I loved The Hollow Places. I'm planning on reading the Twisted one soon. I'm reading What Moves the Dead with all of you in August. And so this one I automatically added, not knowing the synopsis at all. But it's out on my birthday again. Sam Montgomery is worried about his mother. She seems anxious, jumpy, and she begins making mystifying changes to the family home. Sam figures it has something to do with his mother's relationship to Sam's late unlamented grandmother. She's not wrong. As vultures gather around the house and frightful family secrets are unearthed under the rose bushes, Sam struggles to unravel the truth about the house before it consumes her and everyone else who stands in its way. Sounds great. What a good time that'll be. Next up, we have a sequel to Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waukesha Grace, which isn't something that I thought that I needed, but I will read it. I can't remember if I actually told you about this already because I feel like I've known about it for a while, but it's called Moon of the Turning Leaves, and it says 10 years. It's like a post-apocalyptic story. It's set in the winter. It's in an Anishinaabe community and people like infiltrate. And this one says it's set 10 years later, 10 long years since the steady supply of food and fuel from the south became a thing of the past. When the world goes dark, How will you survive? I can't wait to see the cover. Next, I have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi, who I know a lot of people have read from. I never have, but there was something about the first couple words of this, I think, that did it for me. Let's investigate. A sumptuous, gothic-infused story about a marriage that is unraveled by dark secrets. Oh, it's adult. A friendship cursed to end in tragedy and the danger of believing in fairy tales. Once upon a time, a man who believed in fairy tales married a beautiful, mysterious woman named Indigo Maxwell Castaneda. He was a scholar of myths. She was heiress to a fortune. They exchanged gifts and stories and believed they would live happily ever after. In exchange for her love, Indigo extracted a promise that her bridegroom would never pry into her past. We've got secrets, we've got family, we've got love. It says it's got the vibes of Mexican Gothic and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I'm picking it up. Oh, I added this one called Interesting Facts About Space because the title said it was Interesting Facts About Space. That was it. Emily R. Austin, who I will be reading a book from very soon for reasons you might be able to easily discern. And this one says it follows a true crime obsessed, bald-phobic serial dater navigating her first serious relationship, who becomes convinced that someone is stalking her. Very intriguing. This isn't officially on my TBR until I read her other thing first, but it is on my radar shelf to peruse again at a later date. Then we have You Don't Have a Shot by Raquel Marie, which I feel like everybody just like universally agrees that we needed this, which is a queer Bend It Like Beckham inspired story. It's set at a soccer camp where two arch rivals must come together to redeem their reputation and lead their team to victory. I loved Ophelia After All, and it's one of my favorite covers, and I just can't wait to see what this one looks like. Rocky is doing us a service by writing this book, and I can't wait. Then we have Of Light and Shadow by Tanaz Bettina, who I've read a few contemporary stories from, not her fantasy series yet. But this one is the start of another fantasy, it might be a standalone. First of all, it's a love story. We have Roshan, who's out for justice, abandoned by her parents at birth and adopted by the kingdom. She's now the leader of the Shadow Clan, a gang of farmers turned bandits. And then we have Prince Navin, who's always felt like an outcast, second in line for the throne. He gets captured by the infamous Shadow Clan, and now he's going to scheme to befriend Roshan and use her as a means to escape. To further complicate things, which we all saw coming, it becomes harder to fight their growing attraction. Set in a magical world inspired by the Badlands of the 17th century India, this standalone epic fantasy novel is packed with political tension, dangerous schemes, and swoon-worthy romance. The Ask the Age-Old question, can love conquer all? It's standalone. I am reading it. On a different note, we have a thriller, another Mary Kubica. This one's called Don't Wait Up, and it says a husband's disappearance inextricably? Yeah, links two couples in this twisty thriller. Two couples, two close friends, one missing husband. Jack Hayes is missing, this much is certain. At first, his wife Nina thinks he's blowing off steam at a friend's house. Then a day goes by, then 2, then 5, and Jake is nowhere to be found. Then Nina's friend and coworker Lily thinks she might have seen Jake right before he went missing. She has a confession to share. There's a lot of suspense. Let's not read any more into it. Mary Kubica is an automatic ad. That one's out in January. Then I have a magical romance on the list that comes out later this year called Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin. We're following a character named Lucinda, who loves living where she's living, a mystic seaside town where charms, hexes, and magical beings of all kinds are the norm. She spends her days teaching high school, spends her nights reading tea leaves. She always finds herself wishing for more. One night her wish turns into a spell. And now Lucy can't say no. No to public karaoke performance, no to running a 10K, and she can't say no to her high school crush, Alexander, who needs help unjinxing his new house, which happens to be right across the street from hers. I've talked about before how I feel like my current cozy mystery era that I believe I'm in, I don't know why. I've only read 5 so far and only loved 2 of them that weren't the most mysterious. It's okay, but I'm reading them as like a gateway into romance, but I also think it could lead into a gateway of cozy fantasy. So I'm interested to see which way I go with it. But this seems like cozy romance, fantasy, all tied out together. And I think I want to read it. Next up, Nicola Yoon is writing her first adult novel. It's called One of Our Kind, and there's no information about it. It's a psychological thriller? Oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. Okay, she says, think Stepford Wives, but black, meets Get Out. She says, it's my most complicated, ambitious, and philosophical book. It took me a long time to be a good enough writer to do it. Oh wow, I was not expecting a thriller. Ah, that's so exciting. Maybe we should read that for the book club, because like we've all read Nicola Yoon's YA stuff, I feel. That would be so interesting. On that note, another mystery, Ashley Winstead has another one coming out, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I really liked. This one's called Midnight is the Darkest Hour, and it says it's about a good preacher's daughter and a man with a dark reputation as they do whatever it takes to protect their Louisiana bayou town from evil. Not the horrors rumored to dwell in the swamp, but the real evil that walks among them. So that's gonna be fun to read. I also added Ellie Engel Saves Herself by Leah Johnson, because no matter what Leah Johnson writes, I'm gonna pick it up. She's one of the YA authors that I'm happy to continue reading, and it's magical. After a freak earthquake hits the titular 12-year-old heroine's small town, she finds out that she has the ability to bring things back to life with her touch. It's a queer pushing daisies story. Oh, and then one that I added that I recently heard of, but it has been announced for a while, so it's new to me, but not new to Chloe Gong fans. But it's called Immortal Longings, and it's the first book in a new fantasy series called Flesh and False Gods. And the reason that I want to pick this up is because I heard it's a retelling of Antony and Cleopatra, but the main reason I added it is because I did an Instagram story where I talked about like what my dream book would be, like that I haven't gotten to read yet, and I was talking about how it is an adult fantastical romance with a game. But I want a fantastical adult romance, like full of like angst and pining and all of that, but I want there to be a game, because a game-centric story is like my buzzword. That's what I'm always looking for, and I feel like I've read all of these things independently, but that's what I want. I want this big epic romance, but with a game. And so somebody sent me the announcement and said that it sounds like it might be everything that I'm looking for. Pitched as an epic fantasy inspired by Shakespeare, following two lovers in a deadly contest through the crowded streets of Saint-Air, where people have the ability to take control of one another's bodies. It's supposed to come out in summer 2023, and though I haven't read from this author, I know people absolutely love her, so I'm immediately putting it on like my most anticipated reads of the year list. And that's it. Those are all of the books, I think, that I've heard of recently that I wanted to cover with you to see if you're interested, to decide if they're officially on my TBR or not. I hope you enjoyed. I'll put the entire playlist down below in case for some reason you want to go back and hear about years of anticipated synopses with me. Okay, bye!